So welcome to episode 5 of DIY IT. This episode is to cover cybersecurity.
Yep.
So I've brought in a host of speakers here, I guess you could say. Obviously, we have, you guys all remember Adam. He's been on most of them already, but why don't you guys go around and introduce yourselves? And
Adam Ringland, Operations Manager here at MIS Solutions.
I am Arion Martin. I am a IT technician here.
Austin Ringland, System Administrator.
And I'm your host, Jason Null, VP here at MIS Solutions. So welcome, guys. I mean, this is kind of an exciting, I think, segment to talk about.
It's all the rage, man.
It is definitely a space. I've been in IT since about 1995. I'm not sure if we had cybersecurity back then.
I'm going to go with negative.
I mean, we were worried about like the I love you virus. So,
Right.
you know, I remember, you know, administering Exchange mail servers and having viruses just kill the queues and just be sitting there deleting things that they just kept replicating.
Nope.
We don't have that problem today, but, you know, we have a whole new range of security issues, different pieces, different risk assessments we have to do.
Yep.
We've seen more compliance come into the industry because of it. Just kind of want to just go around the room, kind of talk about what we do, what you guys are seeing. And Arion, I brought you in especially because I know you're doing some really cool stuff in cybersecurity with the Security Blue team and some other assessments and kind of training you've been doing. I'd love to hear kind of your view as you've been kind of changing from, I would say, a system tech to diving into cybersecurity and what you think the future is and what you think that's going to look like in companies as we go forward. So,
Yeah, so I started back in, I think it was December of last year. I took my Security Plus, and that was kind of like my intro into the security world. So that provided a pretty good baseline understanding of a lot of the security principles and policies. Security Blue Team was a lot more hands-on, like a lot more practical.
like labs and stuff like that, like virtual labs.
Labs going in and
It's the easiest way to learn, right?
Yep, love the hands-on part of it. So that's kind of where I have originated from.
What kind of things were you doing? You know, are they just replicating a compromise or an attack that an end user would get or an entire business would get? And then, you know, kind of how were you then? What were you doing in your labs, I guess?
Yeah, so Security Blue Team, Blue Team Labs Online was one platform, and then TryHackMe was another. TryHackMe, I like that because...
TryHackMe?
Yeah.
Like TryHackMe?
TryHackMe,
Okay.
TryHackMe.com. They provide education. They teach you, it's kind of a combination of the theory and hands-on at the same time. So TryHackMe was one, Blue Team Labs Online. Wireshark, so working with trying to like understand how to do packet capture analysis.
Yep. Breaking down what's in a packet, if it's malicious or not.
Yep.
Nice.
So that was one of the things that I was working on. But past just like the online lab things, I was working a lot on my home lab environment. So right now, I'm working on building out the Cali Purple SOC lab environment. So it's like...
So define what a SOC is.
So SOC is a Security Operations Center.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, we gotta remember that our guests that are watching don't always know our acronyms, so
Right.
we can acronym them to death and be like, huh? So we don't like to define stuff, so it's okay to say it. Sometimes I'll ask you to just define it. No big deal, because not everybody knows what a SOC is, and besides this right here, yeah. And this is a right SOC. There is a difference.
So that
It's a flea sock, too.
that architecture is kind of like so it has a SIM, Security Information and Event Management System. That's where kind of all of the logs from all of the different systems come in and converge, and from that point the analyst will go in and look for different indicators of compromise. So I've kind of been building that out, and yeah.
So what started you down a security path? I mean, I think it's kind of unique. It's we don't run into many people who like security or start diving in on their own. And I mean, this is something that you've took on yourself.
Yeah.
This isn't something we asked you to do. We love the fact that you have it. It benefits us as a company. wholeheartedly, we're looking to move to having a cybersecurity team, and seeing someone like you pursue that is really cool.
Yeah, so I've been in IT for a couple of years now. I enjoy IT, but I really enjoy the depth that cybersecurity offers.
Nice. Interesting.
I really like the investigative aspect of having to hunt through different things and try to find indicators of compromise. And
Are you hoping to get a badge someday and you can like kick in people's
Law
doors?
dog, don't come around here now.
funny story, I did used to work at Geek Squad, and after 18 months, you do actually get a badge. I still
That's
have
true.
mine.
When you were in Florida, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
That's funny.
that is fun.
But I really do enjoy the depth that it offers. I really enjoy like the critical thinking aspect of it.
Cool.
And it's there's a lot of different subfields, I guess you could say, of cybersecurity. I tend to gravitate towards more of like the technical side. I know there's a lot of like GRC, governance, risk and compliance, whole other fields, but I really enjoy the
that's IT
technical side
as
of
a
things.
whole. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
it's like every time you dig down, there's just
Layer
a
and
layer of subdividing.
Yep.
You can just be a generalist and kind of try to do everything, or you can
Yep.
super specialize. I look at it as like the doctor fields. Like
Yep.
you got your general practitioner, and then you got your brain surgeons, your different types of surgeries that
Right.
people do depending on what they specialized in.
Right.
IT is that, and it really, I think today in the industry that we're seeing, you really need to start specializing. I think 25 years ago we had specialists, but I don't think it was as needed. Today it's so deep. Everything is so deep that you really have to truly specialize.
Yeah, it's like now every layer has its own layers and layers and
Right,
layers.
You can even be like, well, I'm in the networking. And then like you have one guy that's like, well, I'm really into Meraki. I'm a Fortinet guy.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
Yeah, and they're different platforms
Yeah, 100%.
themselves. And I mean, the concepts are the same, but the interfaces, the command lines are all different, and understanding Wireshark and packet sniffing, different stuff like that. I mean, you can go, I just do switches. I mean, wireless access points in themselves. Tuning a wireless access point, in your house, it's one thing.
Right.
But when we're in an environment where there's 50, 60 of them, people don't understand that we're adjusting power and gain and the antenna strength and all this stuff so that they're not stepping on each other, so there's nice handoffs. So wireless in itself is magic. I think it's magic, but there is a lot to it. It's not just put it in and forget it.
Right.
So, and cybersecurity is the same way.
Yeah. I mean, anyone who wants to work on wireless. Good luck.
So what kind of things Austin, I know as a sysadmin, what kind of things are we doing as a company to help with cybersecurity for our clients? I know we don't really have a cybersecurity team currently. I know that your team basically wears that hat. And so what kind of things are you guys doing? What kind of equipment are we running? What kind of scans are you doing to help with our partners and their cybersecurity?
Well, there's honestly quite a bit. Like it's interesting hearing Arion's point, because honestly, since I've been here and been a sysadmin, we haven't run into any like major attacks at all. Honestly.
Oh, great.
Since
Jinxed us.
No, seriously, thank you.
It's because of all these things we put in place.
Yep.
So I think the main thing, a lot of it is, I think a big part of it is helping users stay away from malicious attacks, honestly, especially with email. And that's why we put a lot of things in place with, obviously, 2-factor is a big one. Self-service password reset, also a big one, which is a little bit different. But a lot of the Microsoft stuff we're doing, I think that's been a huge help as far as just on the user.
For sure.
And obviously Huntress, we got our dark web scans, and then also training for users.
Firewalls, next-gen firewalls.
Yeah, firewalls.
Inline scanning,
Advanced security protection in Meraki.
Yep.
Getting licenses for, I think, every partner at this point or close to.
And all the back end stuff that you guys are doing in Microsoft 365 to protect.
Yeah, setting up, I mean,
that's a whole nother,
there's a lot of, it's that's how you said, being on a base level, it's hard because we don't have a team for cybersecurity, so we're kind of just doing, me and Dones are just doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So it's fun to dive into, and it's been a big learning experience for me for sure.
Man of many hats.
It is. I mean, and it's a continuous growing. I mean, that's the thing I like to get across to people is that cybersecurity isn't one thing.
No.
It isn't. We put in a firewall and you're good. And we walk
Yeah.
away. I mean, like everything we do, from security to protection, it is a layered approach.
You could
It
ask.
starts here and starts going all the way down into to the end user,
Yeah.
and that comes down to training.
Well, and especially the thing that's so interesting about it too is like literally tomorrow something could come out and we'd be like, okay, we have to add this to our checklist. Like, this has to get done now.
Oh, it's-
like we have to go to our partners tomorrow and be like, we have to do this now.
Correct.
Like it's constantly evolving.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and back to your point about cybersecurity, you could ask 10 small business owners, 10 different small business owners, what's cybersecurity? You get 10 different answers.
Yeah.
And it's literally just the culmination of a lot of the things that Austin just said. And it's never going to be stagnant. It's always ever evolving. It's like, oh, here's a new tool set that came out for this. Microsoft just added this. Yeah, but I love the fact that, that our guys are being proactive in, trying to set that standardization for our partners.
Yeah.
And I think what we're really good at is determine, hey, our wheelhouse is working with small businesses and small business owners. And we understand what are the things that you need to protect you without going completely over the top when you start getting into SOX compliance and all that. Because you get some of these folks that won't do any of the things that we want them to do until they're forced by their cybersecurity insurance company.
And I think that's cybersecurity is with their cyber insurance.
Yeah.
That's not.
Right.
It's helping us implement
Correct.
cybersecurity because all of a sudden they're like, well, you have to have 2FA, and they're like, well, we didn't want to do that. Well, now we do.
Yeah, so it's trying to be as least intrusive to the end user as it possibly can. But yeah, I mean, what they don't understand is I don't want multi-factor. I'm like, well, you do it for everything else.
Yes.
Like everything in your daily life is MFA'd. Like you just got to roll with it.
In the year of 2023, I feel like email as an initial attack vector is a very, very, very big part of initial attacks.
Yep.
And not having two-factor on for an organization, in 2023, yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
If you don't, especially if you're hosting your email anywhere, whether it's Amazon, Office 365, GoDaddy, whatever platform it is, it has to have 2FA.
Yep.
Because I love the identity or conditional access within Office 365. Having that feature is mind-blowing, and watching it.
Yep.
Because you can sit there and just watch the attacks on an account, and you go into the logs. They just sit there and hit it all day long.
Yeah.
And you start turning on conditional access and being like, only North America.
Right.
All of a sudden, the logs are just empty.
Yep.
And now it's not that they can't get around it. We've talked about somebody from overseas could jump into a VPN and the United States.
Yeah.
That's work though.
but it makes it harder
Right.
for them.
Yep.
Right now, they're not having to do that. When conditional access is turned on for every single person, they'll start doing that. They'll always find ways around it, but it's still a great feature to turn on.
Well,
It's
also
free.
one great thing about conditional access too is it's forcing every user to have two-factor. Like there's
Right,
never
yeah.
going to be like, oh, someone forgot to turn it on for this
Whoopsie.
person. Like it's turned on no matter what.
And the
It's
intelligence behind stuff like that in Office 365. One of the examples I had seen was like the platform understanding where you're at, because you have obviously email on your phone, so it knows where you're at, and then being able to sit there and say, well, Jason was here in Cincinnati, and now 30 minutes later he's in Chicago. Well, that's not
Probability,
possible,
right.
And actually the intelligence behind that is there. Now it could sit there and go, well, it's smart enough to realize he could have taken a flight,
Right.
and maybe it's 3 hours later. That is actually possible,
Right.
Sure.
And so maybe it'll let my access, continue. But if it's all of a sudden 10 minutes later I'm in Chicago, either I just develop Star Trek teleportation or something else is going on. I'm being attacked. So
Right.
Yeah.
obviously two-factor usually helps with that anyways, but
What do you do, or what do you guys think about is the best way to proactively try to do a vulnerability assessment on a partner? Do you think that what we have in place is we've done our assessment and that's kind of what we've come up with our standardization, or is it as Huntress is our MDR is constantly hitting all the endpoints every 15 minutes? Are there other ways that we can jump in and kind of do those scans, tests?
I think another valid tool we have is Network Detective. I think we do see a little bit of they have a kind of a security feature of where we can fill some holes. I think running those monthly like we do is definitely helps. We'll look over those and make sure everything's in place and compliant. I think it also depends too. it's kind of a per client thing. Like, I mean, we have like a standard of every business should have for sure.
Right.
But a per client thing, like, you know, medical, it could be HIPAA. Like there's certain things for HIPAA compliance that we need to put in place that we may not need at a different business.
Right.
So it kind of just varies on each business. But yeah, I mean, I think yeah, with the Huntress and Network Detective and the other tools you have in place, I think overall, I mean, you can always tighten the screws as much as you want on security, but
And that's
as
true too.
far as-
And we're also quarterly sending out the training to see who gets hit and which end user clicks on what bad link, and then they get the laughed at when they get the no. But yeah, it's.
I mean, honestly, the training is great, and I think it's brought an awareness to our end users. But even today, we see those attacks getting even better, right? I've gotten emails recently that I'm almost like,
For sure.
whoa, like that almost got me. There's no way that like you start questioning it, and I start digging into it, and I start looking at the headers and stripping down the email, but I'm amazed. Right.
Who's actually capable of doing that on an end user level?
Correct. They're not. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's what we're here for.
Awesome gift cards. I'll be back.
So
Right.
then that also highlights the importance of multi-factor authentication.
Yeah.
If somebody receives an email that looks like an Office 365 login and they actually do put in those credentials, they don't have two-factor on, then that
They're in.
threat actor could get in immediately.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing that's definitely email. The original concept of it is, you know, an exchange of a message quickly, right? Email was never designed to be secure. We have over the last 25 years kept adding more and more pieces to it. You know,
Encryption.
SPF records, DMARC, DKM, you know, all those things that to trust your mail server, shutting down open relays, not allowing that, the spoofing. Now we're shutting down spoofing because, you know, we can look at Office 365 has a great ability if you create the list. It's like, well, this didn't come from this user and they shut it down. Even tagging emails with the tag, this came from external, I think helps so much.
Yeah,
For sure.
That's great.
100%.
You know, but that's the problem with email is that it was never originally designed like this.
Right.
Like everything, it's a great tool, and nobody thought about how somebody's going to compromise it. And all we've done for the last 25 years is try to fix it slowly by adding more and more ways to verify that something came from somewhere legit.
I honestly think we've done a really good job at tightening the screws on email. Like I remember like a few years ago when I started here, like the amount of email tickets we'd get, like, is this spam? Is this spam? Like I think those have gone way down.
I agree.
I think I see more tickets now saying I can't receive this email from a vendor versus what is this email that I'm receiving.
Right.
So I think we've done a really good job with that. And
Yeah. Note to vendors, if you're still using zip files, please stop.
Right.
Okay, we
Yeah,
are
text.
never going to let them through. Okay,
Right.
you know, so
And I think the key is knowing we're trying to do the best we can to cut back on the attacks, but we always know that someone is. It's always going to happen. Someone's going to get pegged. Someone's going to get hit. So then it's okay. What does our response look like? And you know, and I think one of the things is, you know, the dark web compromises. We get those notifications. If someone's hit, we immediately try to log in with their credentials. If the password that they're auctioning off works, we don't even call the end user. It's boom, shut down. Then we call the end user. And if the password doesn't work, you know, we still reach back out and say, hey, just FYI, if this is a password you're using across any other platforms in your personal life, you might want to start changing some stuff.
that's a great point. I mean, dark web monitoring, it's such an easy tool, but it has so much information. Watching the security breaches that come from that, like their reporting that they give to us, just not about our clients, but they give this like what's going on in the world today. And you just like watch these.
This week in breach?
Yeah, this week in breach. I mean, it is scary the amount of data that is breached daily.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then like, oh, entire database available online. I mean, you're like, have we not learned yet? How many times are we going to publicly put available a database and have all of this stuff available to people?
And these aren't only small businesses either. These
No, this is
huge
large
corporations,
companies.
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like you'll literally see like Fortune 5s getting breached like probably once a month at this point almost. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it pays. I mean, they all have cyber insurance, and cyber insurance is paying for this stuff. So every time they get breached, there's a check that goes out, and somebody's making money. I mean, that's why, obviously, they're making a lot of money because there's a website out there that talks about that, like keeps a current tally. I think the last time I saw it was like in the billions of how much money payouts that they have received because of breaches.
Yeah.
I mean, that tells you it's a multi-billion-dollar industry,
Right.
and it's not taxed. We can figure out how to tax it. The government's gonna love it. I mean,
They're like, no more cybersecurity insurance.
right? We could just tax the breaches. That would be.
Yeah.
That's what they need to start doing, is taxing people on having to pay, and then they would all of a sudden start putting security into their companies.
Yep.
So
I think one thing that we've done that may even be much different than what other people are doing is I just think we're trying to stay, like, we're not really a react company. We're much more of a proactive company. And I think even just like with the user training with dark web, or even as simple as like internal attacks like SSPR, like I think that was just honestly a great idea. Like someone could literally call us and say, hey, reset my password.
I'm John Smith, and you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
hey, John, how's it going?
that was like, I mean, as a company, we had been having this conversation for years.
Yeah.
How do we protect ourselves against somebody? Because we're outsourced IT, right? Anybody can pretend. I mean, yes, you guys, that's why we have the pet teams, right? You get to know our partners. And so you really do start to know people's voices. But again, it's a blind reset on the phone. And you're hoping, and we started doing little things here and there, but the self-service password changed all that for us. It's now on you to prove who you are, to reset your own password.
Right.
I mean, that just took all the security risk for us. It's gone.
Yep.
And it may be inconvenient to the user to a point, but
The first time they do it, they'll
Yeah.
probably be like, oh, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, after that, it'll be.
It can honestly be a convenience to the user. I mean, you don't have to call us to reset your password.
it's true. Well, even just how we've changed passwords, right? I mean, we're standardizing on 16-character passwords for people.
Yep.
Like, I kind of like sat back for a second, like 16 character. Oh, there's no way that people are going to remember this
Easy
stuff.
peasy.
But
What's your favorite song?
well, yeah, it's passphrasing,
Yep.
and passphrasing with two-factor. I mean, almost with two-factor, you almost don't need to reset your password ever. Because my whole argument always in security for password resets, which they happen every 90 days or 180 days, whatever. Before two-factor, my question was always this: okay, you're making me reset my password every 90 days, right? But what happens if my account's compromised tomorrow? You now have 89 days in my system. You know,
Yeah.
the point is to stop you from getting in my system,
Yep.
right? That's where two-factor comes in. That's where these long passwords, the passphrases are great. I mean, we're even pushing it down to children, right? And I think, you know,
Bible verses?
Bible verses,
Yep.
yeah. We have a private school that we support, and they were like, oh, our kids can't remember 16-character passwords. I'm like, they remember Bible verses every week. You have this. You need to remember John, 2 verses 1 through 10, and these kids remember that. They can remember a 16-character password.
Yep.
Believe me, it's not that hard. They're smarter than you think. Even in 4th and 5th grade, they
Sour
will,
Patch Kids is my favorite candy.
right. I mean, and you can come up with creative ways, and then two-factoring is the big help right there.
I think that the 16-character password requirement is a good option, simply because you do have to get more creative. And if you look at a lot of the attacks on these email passwords,
It's
there are
rainbow
a lot
tables.
of yeah, right. It's a lot of just the same passwords over and over again.
100%.
And rainbow tables for our listeners and viewers, these are basically passwords published on the web in a database format, in a sense. So when you're an attacker, you can just sit there and go and drop it in, and it just starts trying them all, and eventually it'll break you. And I mean, this has been going on for a long time. So to get away from things like Monkey 1, Monkey 2,
Winter 2021.
Yeah.
right? Yeah, ASDF,
Oh, I have to reset my. It's spring this season, so it'll be spring 23.
Yeah.
correct. And people's accounts got compromised like crazy with that.
Yep.
So yeah, having these longer passwords that you're having, I love that. Being creative about your password finally, to really truly thinking about a great passphrase. And now it's 32 characters.
Right.
It's even harder to break.
Yeah, no password is going to be unbreakable, but you can
Correct.
definitely make it harder for the
Yeah.
attacker.
That's the thing. There is no solution, right? It is multi-layer approach again.
Yep.
Having every time we do something, it's the firewall, two-factor, it's training. It's making sure
the awareness is the biggest thing
Oh,
we
yeah.
can do, and that's the part that will never stop. We can really fortify on all the other fronts that you're referring to. It's the end user training that will never be able to stop or perfect.
Yep.
Because that's where they're coming. That's where all of these are coming in from. It's not the viruses that someone getting on a computer anymore. It's end users are 95% of these attacks.
How often with the security blue team, are you guys having to? Are they having you like keep your certs up? Are they like doing it like? Is your certification valid for only like 2 years? Is it some kind of continuous where you have to keep it, maintain it? Because I mean, obviously, attack vectors change and way things attacks, so you have to stay current with it. I wouldn't think like in the old days we would get our Microsoft MCSEs and you'd have it forever, right? And even Microsoft's expiring exams now.
So Security Blue Team Level 1 it doesn't have an expiration period, so once you get it, it's pretty much good for life. Security Plus, I know
You're
a lot
like
of
the Supreme Court Justice, Arion.
I know a lot of like the majority of the CompTIA certifications, like the Security Plus. Those I think are good for 3 years, and after that you have to.
I mean, because technology's changed.
Right.
I mean, and I asked that question for this reason. I don't know how many of you guys saw this, but Elon Musk had a great interview with Tucker Carlson the other day. Absolutely, the man's mind just blows me away.
10 steps ahead at all times.
Oh yeah, and one of the things that as I was sitting there listening to this, and you're talking about Terminator in it, and we're talking about what AI can do, and what kind of regulations should we have in place for AI, and I started thinking, and then I saw an article about the Israeli military using AI tactically, right? And I'm like, when are we going to start having AI break into foreign governments, which I'm sure we're doing it today, and when is AI going to get into hackers' hands and they start leveraging it to break into our networks? Because AI is going to bring an entire new approach to, are we going to have to employ AI at our perimeters now?
Yeah.
I mean,
to be the guard.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to, this is why we talk about next generation firewalls right now. They're watching our traffic and stuff, but are we going to have some type of sentry system in play that's truly AI that's actually watching? I mean, our MDR is almost like that because it is constantly monitoring. And so that's what I'm kind of curious on. Where do you guys think cybersecurity is going to go with something like AI?
It's scary.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I mean,
I can't really say that I'm super looking forward to it, but I think a lot of the more like lower level attacks, like the lower hanging fruit, I feel like a lot of like the script kiddies are going to get a little more value from things like AI. As far as like long term,
the script kiddie AI, I mean, that's next.
I don't know. Long term,
buckle up.
Yeah, that's, and as I was listening to Elon talk, I mean, he was talking about financial stuff. He was talking about different industries and space, obviously, but I couldn't get away from that AI, just thinking about what it's going to do, how it can help our society, at the same time how
versus the risk.
Yeah, and how it can hurt us. I mean, it definitely is something we need to make sure that we're, really truly thinking about and just not letting just run wild. Because from a network standpoint, I think that if somebody develops some kind of attack tool off of an AI engine, it could wreak havoc all over the networks that we support. As good as they are, as much security as we have in place, who knows? Who knows what kind of flaws an AI can find faster than we can. And our audit tools are constantly being updated, it's constantly changing. The marks and the values are constantly increasing. We're always turning it up slowly.
Well, I think a big part of it, it is scary to a sense, but it also is just time evolving, because like think about everything that we've put into place as times evolved, or Microsoft's put into place as times evolved. So it's almost like, and like you said, security, it's best practice of you trying your best. I mean, like there's always going to be something that can get through. But I mean, I just think the protection is just going to keep going with the timeline. Like eventually we'll probably be putting on AI security licenses at Microsoft. You know what I mean? Like there's going to be...
That would be cool.
Right.
Microsoft, there you go. There's a great new
SKU.
ChatGPT SKU for Office 365. Security awareness AI.
Partners like, my AI license is $15 an hour.
Right.
Okay, well.
But wouldn't it be great? I mean, if we think about the automation behind that, having AI monitor our logs for us and tell us the attack vectors coming in, like all of a sudden, for us, we have to go check our logs, we have to check our firewalls, but having something monitoring everything for us and being like, all of a sudden, we just, hey, Austin, I've got a attack vector coming in. All of a sudden, this firewall is being hit by this. We should probably close this down.
Like, thanks, blue team.
Yeah, go for blue team. Go for AI 1. I mean, yeah, it's.
But I think from from an MSP standpoint and for what we can do the best at MIS is just staying on top of all news and just anything new coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the
You're
best.
always gonna be
that's the
behind.
best we can do. Right. I mean, honestly,
always
like
catching up.
attacks and security, like attacks are always going to be a little bit ahead.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
But it ends up balancing out, and we just need to make sure we're always on top of everything new coming out, and then I
Agreed.
think we can stay prepared.
Well, I think cybersecurity is interesting. I mean, we're seeing the military have cybersecurity teams, the governments. We're seeing companies starting to now hire. I mean, it is an industry that, the last I heard, there was like, 50 million occupied cybersecurity jobs in the world, maybe even just the United States. I mean,
It's a
it's
lot.
Yeah, it just shows you that cybersecurity and IT infrastructure security is so important that we are now developing career paths for it. 25 years ago there was no cybersecurity career path. Now today you can. I mean, one of the cool things I saw, and this is before COVID, and I don't know if this ended because of COVID or if it's still something that's in play. But Cincinnati Public Schools were talking about having kids in high school, instead of you maybe don't want to go to college, but you're not like wanting to go work in automotive or something like that, and having partnering with different IT organizations to get these kids cybersecurity certified. And they were doing some really cool stuff with trying to build this plan to have these kids go to school, learn cybersecurity, internship during their junior and senior years, to then go out into the real world and go right into the industry, not then go 4 more years in college. And
Yeah, it's like trade schools.
yeah, that's what I'm looking for, is trade school. And that's like the modern day trade school, because honestly, we see Google swiping up kids before they go to college because they don't want them to go to college for 4 years and not learn anything. They're like, we're Google, we're creating the code and everything, so we're going to teach you how to do it.
We'll teach you.
And they swipe up these kids before they're going there because they don't want them influenced by someone else.
Yep.
They want to train them the way that they need. And I see cybersecurity as that's a great trade almost and to get into, because it's a different way of thinking.
Yeah. It's I think it differs from a lot of other career fields in the fact that you don't necessarily need a college degree or formal education in order to be successful in the career space. Professional certifications are a big help, but even I've seen a lot of industry leaders that have come from backgrounds that have not had that formal education, and they just thrive in the field.
IT is interesting because of that. It is one of the unique industries where college degrees don't necessarily matter. It's definitely if somebody's got a certain way of troubleshooting and thinking. I mean, I'd say our staff is probably 50-50. We have guys sitting next to each other with 4-year degrees and guys that came right out of high school, and they're just as good as each other.
Because you come in with a 4-year degree, you still have to figure out how to do it.
Correct.
You've learned about it.
Right. You've learned the theory.
Right.
Right. And the practical
still learning.
application is completely different.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like, all right, I'm a doctor. I'm ready.
Right.
Give me a scalpel.
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather get some young kids who have like
The drive.
the
too.
drive
Yep.
and like have this great way of thinking and teaching them computers, how to troubleshoot stuff, how to repair stuff, and they can go. Their career's endless with that.
Yep. I agree.
I mean, that's something unique in our space, and I love that about our space. Obviously, when I go to the doctor, I want my doctor to have gone to school, and the nurse and everybody. I want them to have done the time, But IT guy, I've met kids who are 14, 15 years old that are brilliant, and from an IT standpoint. They may be a wreck everywhere else,
Right.
but you give them a keyboard and they do things that are amazing.
Yeah, they have keyboards now starting at about 3.
Well, yeah, that too. So how do we? I mean, I know that you guys are checking logs and stuff like that, and what kind of tool sets and proven cybersecurity resources do we implement, or are you guys using today that we may not have been using a couple of years ago? I mean, I know like Reddit's always a great resource for anything. I don't know how it is for cybersecurity, and
Yeah, like was there a go-to site that is like, oh, this is where I wake up, and instead of USA Today, you want to know about all the latest
cybersecurity
attacks.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as like news, I mean, the Hacker News is one of those that I follow pretty religiously. As far as like any specific tools or anything, honestly, it's just being able to, if you don't know something, which you can't know everything in the cybersecurity or IT field.
Right.
If you don't, then where can you go to find out
Right.
what it means or what you should do in response to, I don't know, an attack or something that looks a little fishy. So not necessarily anything particular, but just having the critical thinking, I guess, or analysis skills in order to be able to dig deeper.
Well, and understand what you're looking at too.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to look at a log and see a bunch of stuff happening,
Right.
but if you don't know
Being
how to
able to
read
interpret it.
correct, is
A whole other
I mean,
story.
I remember learning Wireshark years ago and looking at the packet capture, and I'm like, wow, I wish I knew what this meant. This could really help me. And and as I learned stuff like that later on, it was very useful to be able to see what was going on. It's computers aren't just that easy. You plug them in and they just work.
Right.
I mean, we have gotten to that, but there's so much behind it.
Yep.
So.
Well, I think it's interesting too. Like a lot of these like bigger companies, like a security patch will be released and it'll break something. Like obviously they don't want to be like the guy who broke something. So like they try to. It's almost like I think of it as like, why isn't this like blasted everywhere all over your website?
Right.
But again, they don't want to be like the guy that broke this for a bunch of users. So it's kind of like it's hard to like read on it because it's almost like they're trying to hide it a little bit.
Yeah, like, oh, this Windows patch, daggone it, broke all this stuff. Yeah.
Well, we see that. I mean, that's the thing, making sure things stay patched. In the old days, switches just ran.
Right.
Today, we're actively patching our switches, our wireless access points. I mean, we're patching our power strips.
Well, I think that's a good point too. That's another kind of method that we've approached recently is getting a lot of like the older equipment out of customers or
More
partners.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like it's I think a lot of it is like, oh, like it's not like I don't want to work on your old stuff. It's that like you're literally at risk having this old stuff. Like you having this 2003 VM, like you're not getting any updates on that. Like
Right.
it's toast.
Yep.
So like you're automatically more vulnerable. So yeah, it's not that I don't want to work on it. It's just
It's Microsoft
it's
said
gone.
it's
It's
DOA.
done. It's
Right,
done.
yeah.
I mean,
I think that's a good point. I mean, things age out for reasons. They stop getting patches. Doesn't mean people aren't still trying to figure out how to hack them.
right.
Right.
I mean,
Because,
like,
we see there are systems running everywhere. We've heard about even our military running 2003 still in places. I mean, it just makes you wonder a little bit. And necessarily newer is not necessarily better, but if it's being supported, at least somebody's trying to fix the vulnerabilities. And that's staying on top of that, having the right tool sets, having the right mindset, and keeping that moving forward and it's constant. You're just constantly patching everything. And then I think you just said we've seen Microsoft patch a security hole, and all of a sudden printing has broken for everybody in the world.
Those are fun days.
And it's like, and we're not ready for it because nobody expected the patch to break everything. And the next thing you know, our phones are lit up, their ticket system's lit up, and we're rolling back patches, trying to get servers printing, and Microsoft scrambling to fix the fix, right? And it's tough. I feel for companies trying to maintain stuff, and I think Microsoft versus like an Apple, I think has it even harder. Microsoft's writing a platform to run everywhere, right?
Yeah.
You can run it on a Mac. I mean, and to not control the hardware, and it's different everywhere. There's so many pieces of hardware in a PC.
I'm sure that's a nightmare.
It's got to be a nightmare. Like Apple, they have 16 models.
Yeah.
Right.
And they can sit there and they have them all. They can test their OSs on them. I think they have a much easier time.
well,
Like Android's the same way.
well, Apple also doesn't have server OS. So
True.
like,
Anymore.
right. So I mean, that's another thing Microsoft has to deal with, and that's if you break that, that's breaking a lot of people.
Yep. It's like Apple versus Android. I mean, Android phones are cool. You can get all kinds of different phones, but again, they're all different. They're all over the place. Nobody's the same.
Right.
The operating systems don't look the same. Apple has to fix so many phones, and they drop the oldest one off, and we don't want to update that anymore. Go get a new one.
No.
And so I get that. It's tough security. I'm glad I'm not into that space. Because I don't know how happy I would be constantly trying to patch vulnerabilities. So
Right.
I mean, these guys make a change to an operating system. It's supposed to be an improvement.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, and you're like, it's a security hole.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
yeah, things have definitely changed.
Well, it's also finding, that's another part, like kind of picking the right partners, of figuring out what works for them in terms of, they might have a program that can only run on a 2016 VM, and I can't shoot it up to 2022 or 2019. So it's just,
You better be finding a new program here soon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I hate to be that. Like, I know this program works, but in 6 months, your operating system is going to be obsolete.
Yep.
There is going to be no more support for it. You're not going to be able to get equipment for it, and you need to move up. And there's going to be a spend for that.
Yep.
But in the end, your company will be better for it, because if you try to run this on this, you're going to get breached.
Yep.
There is going to be some kind of issue. I think that just having the internet to the desktop for everybody has caused a lot of this. I mean, I remember starting years ago, and you didn't have internet access at your desk. It's
The special people have that.
yeah, it's like, and even having my computers at home online. Like, I remember building a proxy server at home and running a domain and everything to make sure all my computers were connected across my cable modem.
Right.
Or my dial-up modem, I should say, because my proxy server would dial out and leave the connection open all the time so my computers could get to the internet. But, before that, it was, when you needed to get online, you got online and you waited, for the whole connection to make. And today, everything is connected, and it's,
Yep.
I think that makes it even more of a risk. I mean,
The introduction of all the IoT devices.
smart homes, yes. You got cameras, light switches.
Yeah.
Alexa never listens.
You're
I don't
right.
know.
Yes, our
She's not
TVs.
never listening.
I mean, think about how many security holes are TVs. You plug in a Samsung TV or an LG TV and find out later on that has some kind of security hole, and it's been sitting there running on your network this entire time at your house.
Yep.
Or at your office. I mean, you plug this stuff in. We don't even think two things of it.
I mean, we literally, it was like last week we got an alert from Meraki that Xbox was like downloading malware.
Right. Yep.
Like,
It was at every location.
Really?
It was on all of our Meraki networks. It was like malicious, like Xbox.
Was it an Xbox attack or something?
I guess.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, we got PlayStations, Xboxes, Apple TVs, Rokus,
Light bulbs.
light bulbs, door locks.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it's endless, and we just continue IoT, and now IoT. You're talking about like in our homes, manufacturing. They've got sensors everywhere in manufacturing facilities, and we're running a lot of the stuff that was running on 2.3 gigahertz networks, right? Older encryption. I don't know how many times we've come across IoT devices running web security, and from a wireless standpoint, that's horrible.
Yeah. And the scary part for us is, I mean, that's up to the vendor. We're not putting in these devices to whoever they're using for their security systems. We're hopeful, like I hope that they're doing the right thing, or camera systems, or it can get dicey when you don't really know what another vendor is putting in there.
It's amazing what we have running on networks today.
Yep.
When you start to really think about your house, just your house, you just start small. I mean, I look at my house. I've got my storage.
Well, you can get up to 50 devices real quick.
Yeah, all my light bulbs, light switches, garage door openers, door locks, cameras, Xboxes, PlayStations, NASs. What else? I mean, the list could go on and on. Hot water heaters, gas shutoff valves, water detection shutoff valves, leak detection valves, systems. It's all IoT running on my network. My network definitely has at least 50 devices.
Yep.
So.
Yep, it's pretty interesting.
And I think one of the major obstacles that we faced over the past few years, and really just since we've been here, it's explaining the importance of cybersecurity to the partners. That's probably and I think we've done a great job, honestly. We honestly have pretty much everything we want implemented at most partner locations.
Agree.
I mean, we've done a really good job at that initial conversation of hey, this can happen. It's very realistic. It does happen if we don't get two-factor turned on. If we don't, I think that's honestly probably the hurdle that most MSPs are going to face, and that we face.
Yeah.
Yeah, we face that hurdle probably the most with new partners.
Yeah.
Because we're having to now get them to understand it. Where our existing partners, they all get it now. So it's usually bringing somebody new on board and then getting their systems up to our standard. That's the trouble. It's not something you can just turn on overnight.
Well, yeah, and it's also sometimes you'll have like those new partners that come in and you're like really surprised, like, wow, they actually have a pretty decent amount of stuff, of good stuff set up. And then you have the other people who just have nothing. So really it's just where they came from. Was it internal IT? Was it an MSP that just didn't care? Like what was going on? So it's interesting seeing all the different environments. And
Or what I always love is, the son's taking over the company, and this is how dad ran it, and there's like nothing, and then the son wants to take him to the next level, right, and into the 21st century, and all of a sudden now they're starting to get the real IT things and bring up their security, and then having that conversation with them and bringing them along. That's always fun.
Yeah, that's also a hurdle with some of the older partners. I mean, they don't have a full grasp of how things are changing as much as the younger generation does. So it is difficult. I mean, but.
Well, that's what I love. One of the things that we have with our deliverable is that our security suite is constantly evolving, right? We have a fee for it. Our customers pay for it. But in the end, we keep inserting new pieces into it.
Yep.
And a lot of times they don't even know. When we roll out our MDR, there was a huge price increase for us, right? We're talking 3,000 plus endpoints. We were having to pay for that. And that came out of us. We didn't turn around and go to our partners and be like, yeah, we're having to raise your rates, 50% across the board because we want the security tool. We felt so, called to do this for our partners that we just rolled it out, and it was just part of our services.
Yep.
Nobody saw a bump in anything. We just all of a sudden one day it showed up and it started protecting us, took us to that next level.
Yeah, sometimes doing the right.
Yeah.
Sometimes doing the right thing is the right thing to do.
Correct.
Like it's not.
Yep. That's what we want to do.
Right.
I think a lot of times people might not completely understand that if a cyber attack does happen, it's probably going to hurt two things. It's going to hurt revenue, and it's going to hurt reputation. And that latter one is one that's...
Yeah, you tarnish your reputation. You're right. Everything you've worked.
Trying to build back from that
Correct.
level of trust with your customer base can be pretty difficult.
Yeah. It's just like
if you can bounce back from
lying to your parents. Like it takes a long time to get that trust back. You know what I'm saying? Arion, you're fine.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yep.
So what's next for you from a cybersecurity standpoint?
Really just working on that continuous education.
Yeah.
That's something that if somebody is interested in a career in the cybersecurity space, I feel like that's something that you really have to understand, is that because of the ever-evolving landscape, the threat landscape,
You're always learning.
Yeah.
And if that's not something that you can do, then you're going to fall behind. And
Then you need to get into management, right?
Oh.
But yeah, if you don't, then you're going to fall behind, and that's going to...
And it happens really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Austin? I was going to call you Tuna. I know it's your nickname. Sorry. It's been hard not to call you Tuna, so
Right.
I keep struggling to call you Austin. And now I just told everybody your nickname. I apologize.
cat's out of bag now. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, just staying up to date on everything. I think that's the most important thing, just for all of our partners, is as long as me and all of our system administrators and techs in general are just staying up to date and doing what we can, following best practice. That's what we can do.
Yeah, it's just being proactive, and that is a model that is evolving for us over the past 4 or 5 years. We've become way more proactive in every single thing that we do.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's really cool too is over the past couple of years we've implemented a ton of stuff.
Yep.
And I think we have built a really good baseline of what we want, and now it's just, if there's one new thing that comes out, it's not some big production of getting all this stuff pushed out again. Like it's just one thing we can just keep adding on to our list, and that's I think we have the crucial stuff. Yeah, 100%. We have the crucial stuff put up, and I know when it rolls out, it can be really frustrating. It can be a lot of work, but now that we have it up, it's just gonna be small things here and there.
Right. Yep.
That's true. We have definitely changed, and we will continue to change. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for showing up today.
Sure.
Thank you.
I know it's taking time out of your day from reading logs that you. I know this was not as in depth as you would like. Yeah. So thank you guys all for watching. Next week's episode 6, is Cloud Deep Dive. So you get to get into cloud computing. You can head over to MIS.tech/DIY. Catch up on the first 4 or 5 episodes that we've already done. There's additional resources there. We have blogs, checklists, and guides. Continue to follow us on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Get your hacking on.
Yeah.
Hack the day.
Hack the Casbah. Hack the Casbah.
Hack the planet!